Now, you all remember the Yeti, don't you? No, not the big, white, hairy, mythical creature, the car, the Skoda Yeti. Well, we love that car here at Carbuyer, but sadly, life has moved on and the Yeti is dead. It's the Karoq, and Skoda wants you to think of it as a scaled-down Skoda Kodiaq rather than an all-out Yeti replacement. The overall design is more conservative to appeal to more people, and the Yeti's quirky, oddball good looks have been replaced by a car that looks like a Seat Ateca with a Skoda nose grafted on the front. It's smart, but nothing more so. That scaled down Kodiaq feel continues in here because it looks really similar to its larger brother. Just like the outside, the design is well ordered rather than daring. It's no Peugeot 3008, that's for sure, but it does look very premium. It also feels quite premium. All these soft touch plastics and the Alcantara seats on this particular model give it an upmarket feel. And I would say this is almost just as good, maybe even a bit better than a Volkswagen Tiguan for materials and quality. Now, all the switchgear is where you would expect it to be. The infotainment system is very easy to use, and there is plenty of storage. Let's check the glove box, make sure, actually the crisps don't quite fit, sadly. Never mind, I'll have to eat them instead. But let's check our Carbuyer. Oh, big bottle test, and it passes with flying colours. Also, a little thing which I quite like in the door bins, you've got a little bit of elastic here to hold in any loose papers, and I quite like this, a little disposable rubbish bag. How convenient. So, therefore, there is no excuse. You cannot leave any rubbish in those door bins anymore. Skoda has thrown in a lot of standard kit on the Karoq, so even the basic SE gets 17-inch alloys, cruise control, rear parking sensors and dual-zone climate control. We'd go for the SEL though, as it comes with everything you need, including LED headlights, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, an 8-inch touchscreen with sat-nav and Vario Flex seats. Well, let's start with those Vario Flex seats, shall we? Yeah, it's quite an interesting term. It basically is just a fancy name for movable seats. But what is quite good about them is that actually there are 3 and they're all individual. So they can slide, recline in a number of different ways, and you can actually even remove them completely, which is quite unusual for this type of car, and it's brilliant for families. Now, even with the seats in their most forward position, there's still quite a good amount of legroom, a fair amount of headroom as well if you've got a big hat on or you've got a big head full of big brains. But the good thing is, if you are on your way back from work having a Mackie D's in the back, you've got a nice tray to eat on. Now, round at the boot, this is the Karoq's trump card, really. If you go for those clever rear seats, you have the largest boot in class. And even if you don't have them, well, look at it. I mean, the boot is enormous. It's of good shape, although there is a bit of a drop down for when loading the suitcases. But let's give it a go anyway. This is definitely a very sizable boot. It's even got a bit of netting in the back to keep hold of any loose luggage. Plus, always handy, little torch here so you can tell terrifying stories to your children late at night. And finally, if you want to make the boot even bigger, well then you can use these adjustable seats, which go down one by one. Really, the only downside to all of this is that if you want to replace this handle with the hands-free electric tailgate, it's going to set you back a ridiculous £650. Under the bonnet, it's all pretty simple. So for petrol, there's a 113 brake horsepower, 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol, and one of VW Group's new 148 brake horsepower, 1.5 litre turbos, While for diesel, there's a 1.6 and a 148 brake horsepower 2 litre that only comes with 4-wheel drive. No matter what engine you choose, there's the option of a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual clutch automatic. We've got the 1.5 litre diesel here, despite all the bad smells around diesel engines at the moment. If you need a diesel, then this is a good one. With 113 brake horsepower, there's decent enough power, and when cruising, it's quiet enough, although it can get quite noisy under hard acceleration. If you don't need diesel power, then either of the petrols are a good bet. The 1 litre is great for around town and light loads, and then the 1.5 is perfect for power and smoothness. The 1.6 though is the most frugal, if you believe the claimed figures of around 60 miles per gallon. In the real world, you'll be looking at around 50 mpg, which is a bit off the Peugeot 3008 and Nissan Qashqai, but it's still good nevertheless. The petrols aren't as bad on fuel as you'd expect though. The 1 litre returns 52.3 mpg claimed, and the 1.5 litre 51.4 mpg. The 1.5's fuel economy is helped by cylinder deactivation, which cuts 4 cylinders down to 2 under light throttle application. The Karoq is good to drive in that typical VW group way. The steering isn't as sharp as a Peugeot 3008 or a Ford Kuga, but it's accurate enough and has more consistent weighting than either of those two cars. The manual is definitely the pick of the gearboxes. It's nice and precise to use, whereas the DSG Auto can be a little hesitant at times. Throw in a much more comfortable ride than the sportier Seat Ateca, and the Karoq is a quiet, comfortable, upmarket and pleasant car to drive. For most people, that'll be enough. We just wish it had all those great features and added some sparkle of the old Yeti. The Karoq is competent, but not interesting to own or to look at.